Welcome to Experimental, the science show where people freeze in the snow, toads dance, and women drink their pee. Coming up, why this man has a problem with chickens.
If you touch chickens, it increases the poultry pleasure in a scientific way.
And why this man has a problem with women. But first, we're off to Switzerland and the peaceful suburbs of Zurich. Or are they? Sadly not. You see, hidden deep beneath the snow-capped roofs, there lurks the sound of snoring. A sound so bad, it's driving some people to want to kill.
Tim!
But now there is potential relief for the long-suffering citizens of Zurich's snoring zone. No, Tibetan Buddhism has not put down new roots in the Alps. These frozen gnomes of Zurich are undertaking the latest low-tech cure to nighttime rumbles, prescribed by this man, Dr. Milo Puhan, and his team at the local hospital. The playing of the didgeridoo.
Well, with the didgeridoo, we try to exercise the muscles of the upper airways, and thereby the collapsibility of the airways is reduced, so we don't snore anymore, and you have less sleep apneas.
Snoring occurs when the muscles at the back of the throat relax and collapse in on one another, causing them to vibrate as we breathe in and out. In most cases, it simply causes a vibration and that annoying noise. But in some cases, the muscles get stuck together, blocking the airways and effectively stopping the patient breathing. It's called sleep apnea, and at the very least, it leads to the patient constantly waking up. But in the worst cases, it results in high blood pressure and heart disease. But what is it about playing the didgeridoo that's so beneficial? Why not the bagpipes or the trombone? Well, in part, it's the sound of the didgeridoo. It seems that its low frequencies give the throat the perfect massage, as Dr. Puhan's assistant, Dr. Brandley, will demonstrate to those of you who are not squeamish.
With the bronchoscope passing through the nose, I can show you where the snoring happens and the apneas. Further down in the nose, you will see a valve which closes the nose through the mouth, and where by vibration you have the snoring sound, and by complete closure you have the apneas.
And now, a television first. Didgeridoo playing as never seen before, from the inside. And you can immediately see what a workout the low frequency of the didgeridoo gives the throat. In addition to the good vibrations of the didgeridoo is the technique of circular breathing that it requires. To keep the note continuous, players have to breathe in through the nose at the same time as breathing out through the mouth. To achieve this, a skilled player blows normally from the lungs, keeping the cheeks full of air. To take a breath, he closes the glottis, the gap between the vocal cords, and blows the remaining air in his mouth into the didgeridoo while breathing in through his nose. And that strengthens exactly the muscles that collapse during snoring and sleep apnea.
At first I had 17 sleep apneas per hour in the night, and I was snoring. And after 5 to 6 months, I wasn't a snorer. I had no snoring acoustic, and I hadn't apneas.
There is one problem with the treatment, though. There is a danger that for some people, one unacceptable noise is replaced by another. a moment, we'll be going to caress some chickens with Dr. Chuk in Singapore. But first, it's off to the test department and a man who's interested in caressing women. Our test department demonstrator, Horace, wants to have babies. And for that, he needs one of these. But Horace wants to ensure that his babies are as healthy as possible. And for that, he has raided the Experimentals library. After many hours, his eyes alight on the work of Swiss scientist Klaus Wedekind at the University of Bern. Apparently, he's come across evidence that women's choice of a mate is, in part, influenced by smell. Not the stuff out of a can, but good old-fashioned BO. The theory goes that women unconsciously sniff out men whose immune system is different from theirs, which could help to guarantee healthy babies. It's controversial stuff, but if it's true, it means that BO might be more important in courtship than most people think. Which is why we find Horace beefing up his whiff, prior to a spot of mate attracting. So, let's see if there are any women out there who find Horace's whiff the perfect pong for the creation of healthy offspring. Oh dear. Keep on dreaming, Horace. Later on Experimental, we'll be finding out how Australians feel about cane toads.
I think we've got to kill them.
But first, let's travel to Singapore, where they have a thing about chickens. Look at any menu in any restaurant in Singapore and you'll find that chicken, in all its unusual varieties, dominates the dishes. From chicken rice to phoenix claws, which are, well, I think you can see what they are. But when they're not eating chickens, the citizens of Singapore seem to have pretty strong feelings about their welfare. At least, that would seem to be the case from research being carried out by Dr. Chuk at Nanyang Technological University.
When I was a little boy, my grandfather had a lot of chickens in the backyard, and I was the only child and an only grandchild, so most of my friends were chickens.
Ah, that's sweet, I think.
And it's shown, by scientific tests that if you touch chickens, they grow faster and they lay more eggs, and so there's a measure of poultry pleasure, and it increases the poultry pleasure in a scientific way.
The chicken Dr. Chuk most likes to give poultry pleasure to is this cocky little chap, Chirp. With Dr. Chuk hard at work in his lab, Chirp spends most of his days alone in his sad green research cage, deprived of the human caress he craves so much. But not for long.
I wanted to develop a new type of system where no matter where you are in the world, whether you're off Earth or on the other side of the globe, you can actually have a communication with your pet through touch. And this is why we developed this system.
What Dr. Chuk is talking about is poultry internet touching, or PIT. You see, TV and radio deal with sound and vision, but no one has managed to transmit touch like this before.
If we touch ourselves, the signal is transmitted to our brain and we feel that feeling of touch sensation. In this case here, we're using the internet as kind of a nerve fibre.
Within our bodies, and Chirp's as well, lie thousands of nerve fibres and pressure-sensitive cells. So, when we pet our chickens, dogs or cats, their cells are stimulated and an electrical impulse travels up the nerves in their bodies to their brain. And thus they feel the caress of their beloved owner. It's much the same with us. On each of our hands, we have upwards of 17,000 of these cells, so our touch is very sensitive. For Dr. Chuk's device, though, it's a bit more rough and ready. On the body of his remote chicken doll, he has placed 5 pressure-sensitive pads that detect when they are touched by him. That information is sent over the net to these vibrating widgets, placed in a handsome chicken suit. When the pads are touched by Dr. Chuk, the widgets vibrate in the same place on the chicken's body.
So what we have here is the actual chicken jacket, and inside here we have sensors and also the touch mechanism. So when you put this on the chicken, it will feel the touch remotely. So very simply, you just get your pet chicken and very comfortably you put the jacket, and it's a very lovely and soft material, so it feels very comfortable for the chicken. And that's basically it. It just wears this jacket and it will feel the touch from anywhere in the world.
But hold on, Dr. Chuk. Touch is a two-way thing. It's no good simply touching Chirp. We need to get an idea of how the poor bird is feeling.
So what happens is that in the backyard, we are tracking the pet chicken with a camera, and it sends the signal through the internet, and then this moving mechanism moves the doll according to the actual position of the chicken in the backyard. So I can see the pet chicken move represented by the pet doll here.
You can actually feel the chicken.
Yes, I can. I can actually change my touch according to how the chicken is moving, and I can also affect the chicken's movement by my touch.
So how does the chicken feel about this? Dr. Chuk worked this out by having Chirp repeatedly choose between 2 coloured doors, behind one of which lay his stylish chicken suit.
What happens is that if it goes into the blue door, it will receive food and water and no poultry internet touching. And if it goes into the red door, it will receive the same food and water, but 10 minutes of the poultry internet jacket touching. Now, over a period of 1 month, we found that over 80% of the time, the chicken preferred the door where it will receive the poultry internet system. So we can actually, using this technique, prove that the chicken preferred to use that poultry internet jacket, and so it actually is feeling some kind of pleasure.
It might only be a few little pads vibrating, but it's enough to give Chirp pleasure. Something that's floating Dr. Chuk's boat back in the lab.
It feels very exciting. It feels like I am actually physically interacting with my real pet, even though this pet could be in the other side of the world.
All this human-chicken interaction might seem odd, or indeed somewhat disturbing. But luckily for him, caressing chickens remotely is not the sole purpose of Dr. Chuk's research.
This is just the first system. What we're really interested in is the wide area of human-to-pet communication using digital media. So what we see in the future is that people use this for their cats and for their dogs and their pet hamster.
Cats, dogs, hamsters, wives, girlfriends, complete strangers. Still to come on Experimental, how to save the planet with olive oil, and then celebrate with a slug of your own urine. But before the water sports, what about heading to the rainforest of Australia's Northern Territory with the aim of slaughtering a few cane toads? An alien species, these poison hoppers are described as the #1 threat to Australian wildlife. Environmentalists have been trying to wipe them out for years, with little success. But now there's new hope, because they've discovered that cane toads love to disco. It seems they have a fatal obsession with UV lights, as Graham Sawyer of Frogwatch, yes, Frogwatch, explains.
Well, once we found the toads were disco freaks and like hanging around those blue lights, we decided that gave us a real edge in terms of trying to eradicate them. So we're now on that pathway of wiping out cane toads using their disco habit.
Cane toads were brought to Australia in 1935 to eat the beetles that were destroying the country's sugarcane fields. The toads didn't fancy the beetles much, but they did love to breed. Today, there are around 100 million of them. They'll eat almost anything they can stuff in their mouths. Australian wildlife just can't compete. In the last 70 years, they've been travelling at up to 1.5 kilometres a night, and their relentless march has taken them right across Australia. Now they threaten Darwin, capital of the Northern Territories. The problem is, very few things in Australia can eat a cane toad. They contain a poison so strong, it can kill crocodiles, snakes, and just about any other predator in minutes. Even the eggs and tadpoles are poisonous. It's basically just man against the toads, but they've proved remarkably difficult to kill. But of course, no self-respecting Australian is going to let a toad get the better of him.
I think we've got to kill them. Simple as that. We've got to stop their advance, and we've got to stop them in their tracks before they start stuffing up our pristine wilderness.
And local Member of Parliament David Tollner has a simple solution.
I think there's many ways to deliver a killing blow. Certainly with a golf club, lumps of wood, cricket bats will all do the job.
But even with the best handicap in the world, no golfer's ever going to stem the cane toad invasion with a 9-iron.
She's having a bit of fun.
What's needed is the perfect trap, baited with something a cane toad just can't resist.
Basically, we were playing around with different wavelengths of UV, and the shops in town had a number of different types of UV light, so we just decided, OK, give us one of each of those and we'll take them out and try them. And it was just over that wall over there where we set up the trap with the first black light on it, and it caught 109 cane toads in its first week.
But what's so special about UV light? Lynn Schwarzkopf of James Cook University.
It could be that there's something about UV light that attracts toads. There are animals that respond to UV light, not toads that I know of. But there are lots of insects that use UV light for orienting, and so it may be that more insects are attracted to the light, and that attracts more toads.
And now they're adding music to the light show.
OK, put the cage down.
Schwarzkopf and colleague Ross Alford have been experimenting with the mating call of the male toad. If the toad is attracted by the mating call, then it should move to the source of the sound and ignore the dummy loudspeakers.
As it turns out, both males and females are quite attracted to the sound, probably because the sound of a calling male signals the presence of water, and they're always on the lookout for water.
We were talking about these things as little discos in the bush, but we've got one over behind me which has also got an audio system on it that plays the mating call of the male non-stop all night, so we've got music and disco lights.
It's a place where they like to hang out.
Yeah, we were waiting to see whether we caught all the teenage toads at that place.
I know what you're thinking. What happens to all the trapped cane toads now? Are they shipped off to the local golf club for driving practice? Some find their way into the local souvenir shops, but to be honest, that's a rather limited market. No, it turns out that cane toads might be of use to Australian agriculture after all. After they've been collected from the traps, the toads are bagged up and taken back to Darwin, where they're gassed with carbon dioxide and stored in the freezer before being carted off to the local fertiliser plant. And if any escape, well, at least we know where to find them. In a moment, we're off to the kitchens of the University of Toronto to meet a man who thinks he can power the world with olive oil. But before that, let's knock off to the test department for a gulp of the amber nectar. Meet Tester X. She does have a name, but we're not going to tell you what it is. But why? Because she is about to do something she doesn't want her friends to know about. She's going to drink her own wee-wee. Before we watch her gulp, let's just find out what this wee stuff is. Basically, it's the rubbish the kidneys flush out. Principally salts, a liquid called urea, and finally the stuff which makes it watery, which is, well, water. So back to the main event. Although our tester is strange, she's not so odd. What she's going to do is get rid of the bits of the urine and keep the water. And for that, she's going to use a very basic chemical technique: distillation. What happens is that the nice, clean and sweet-to-the-taste water is boiling off, whilst the nasty, yellow, you don't want to drink them type bits are being left behind. Once the steam condenses at the end of this pipe, there's nothing left other than good old H2O. Nice, and very useful if you've never heard of a tap. Environmentalists are always banging on about energy. How we need to cut down on the amount we use, or else it's all going to run out. Moan, moan, moan. Trouble is, they're probably right. So what if I told you that somebody had invented a way of harnessing freely available energy that was cheap, practically invisible, and completely wireless? Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Well, here at the University of Toronto, Professor Ted Sargent is doing just that. Inside this bottle are millions of tiny particles called quantum dots that can be painted onto the surface of just about everything. Each dot is a microscopic solar panel capable of converting infrared light from the sun's rays into usable electricity. And the raw material for this nanotechnology miracle is more at home in the kitchen than in the lab. It's olive oil.
Yeah, we basically grow these quantum dots, these little semiconductor particles, in a vat of olive oil.
What's going on is little more than clever cooking. Two chemicals are added to the oil and some fancy heating and bubbling goes on until you end up with quantum dots of semiconductor, each a few billionths of a meter in diameter. And it's that size that makes them tuned to infrared light. In the future, appliances coated with them should be able to power themselves, not only from infrared light streaming through the window, but even more amazingly, because they are tuned to infrared light, the best lit appliances could share surplus energy with those in the shade by producing infrared beams of their own. And this is how it works. The quantum dot solution is sprayed between a sandwich of electrical materials. When infrared energy from the sun or from another appliance hits them, the dots get excited and lose electrons, which travel as an electrical current. This current can then be used to power whatever the sandwich is connected to. Traditional solar cells work a similar way, but they haven't really taken off because they need great big chunks of silicon that are expensive and very difficult to make.
So nanotechnology, through engineering at the atomic and the molecular scale, is giving us control of over these materials so they can harness the sun's power efficiently.
The sun blasts our planet with 10,000 times more energy than we currently consume through power stations. And to match our energy needs, we'd only need to cover 1,000th of the Earth's surface with Ted's quantum dots. That's roughly the same as the area of the USA that is paved. And with our ever more power-hungry lifestyles, perhaps it won't be long until we see contractors painting office blocks with Ted's techno salad dressing. Mind you, if all the olive oil is going to be used to help power the world, what on earth are we going to put on our salad? Welcome to Experimental, a science show that adds chips to fish, poisons the general public,
Sorry, I gotta spit it out.
then takes on White Van Man and wins. Later on, we'll be making a noise in the library, racing a guinea fowl, and taking a deep breath before suddenly trusting this man. But first, let's go swimming. Britons eat over 283 million portions of fish and chips a year. They're the largest consumers of fish and chips in the world. And those battered morsels are one of the reasons that attracted Washeng Hu to his current job as Professor of Computer Science at the University of Essex.
Can I have a fish and chips, please? One, yeah.
In fact, he loves fish and chips so much, he's developed a fish with built-in chips.
Another chips.
You can find it at the London Aquarium, among the schooling herring, butterfly fish and brown sharks. It's one of the world's first robotic fish. Not only does it look and swim like a fish, but like the real thing, it can sense its environment, allowing it to behave totally autonomously. On the inside, though, it's not so fishy.
As you can see, this is our prototype robotic fish.
The fish's sensors are connected to computers inside the head that process their signals. 4 main joints here simulate real fish movement, and these sensors on the face help the fish avoid obstacles. There's also a chamber for pitch and buoyancy control. But for all the technology, Dr. Hu is most proud of the fact that
There's sunglasses on our robotic fish.
they don't do much, but Dr. Hu thinks the sunglasses make the fish look more like people. Designing and building a robot fish took Dr. Hu and his team 3 years. But why go to so much trouble? The secret is in the swim. As you may have noticed, it's something fish can do quite well. In fact, they use only a fraction of the energy that would be used by a conventional propeller-driven ship. So if we learn to replicate the fish movement mechanically, we could end up with far more economical ships and submarines. At the moment, the robo-fish goes belly up after 5 hours, when its batteries go flat. But in the future, Dr. Hu hopes to make robot fish that will float to the surface and recharge themselves using solar energy. These could then be used as fully autonomous submarines, surveying pipelines, or even operating as spies. Whatever happens, there is one place they probably won't end up: on Doctor Who's plate.
Hello!
In a moment, tango in the library with loudspeakers for one. But first, let's see what's cooking in the test department. Taste. Is it all to do with your tongue, or do those other senses, sight, smell and touch, have anything to do with the pleasure of eating? To find out, this tasty dish is going to fry up a bit of dead chicken, pig and cow. First, she'll check time and cooking temperature, like any good scientist should. Now, she'll get rid of one of the sensations that makes for a great meal, texture, by sticking all that meat in the liquidizer to create a nice smooth paste. So how do we deal with the other elements of a great munch, smell and looks? Like this. The question is that when the only sense that's active is taste, will your average punter be able to tell the difference between pork beef and chicken? Let's see.
I don't know, I can't taste a thing.
Pork.
Chicken.
Okay, that's beef.
Pork.
So, if you cannot see it, smell it, or feel its texture, all fried flesh seems to taste the same.
Hard to tell.
But what about some vegetarian options? A beetroot, an apple, and an onion. Let's get whizzing and testing. First up, the beetroot and apple.
I've absolutely no idea.
Those are apples again.
I'd say banana.
So the results there seem to be the same as for the meat. But what about the onion?
I just ate a mouthful of onion.
Whoa, onions. Onion? Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I gotta spit it out.
So it seems that of all our foodstuffs,
Disgusting.
only the onion has a taste distinctive enough to be recognised by the tongue alone.
Is that onion?
Coming later on Experimental, why jam jars can beat the strongest hunk.
No, can't do it.
How one sniff from this man could make you give away a fortune, and can Horace beat White Van Man over 30 yards. But first, let's make our own private racket in the library. Experimental has come to the quiet seclusion of Wayland Public Library in Massachusetts to meet this man, Dr. Joseph Pompey, who's got a thing about annoying people with sound.
Hey, you. Ma'am, please wake up. No sleeping in the library.
Most people of his age don't know much about sound. The most antisocial they can get is turning their car's hi-fi up in a quiet neighbourhood. But Dr. Pompey has studied sound for so long he's got letters after his name, and he came up with something a bit better.
That's not a speaker system. Now this is a speaker system.
The whole idea of his sound spotlight system is to make sure that only one person can hear him, even though they're 20 metres away.
Hey, you there. You on the laptop. Are you downloading illegal files to the library network? I hope not. Hey, you there, studying. Miss, can you hear me? I think it's time for a break. Hey, you. Looking at CDs. We're watching.
Taking the mickey out of innocent readers might seem a bit childish, but there's a reason why Dr. Pompey comes here to test his kit.
A library is about the most sensitive area you can think of for background noise and generating sound that people don't want to hear. But with the audio spotlight, we can deliver sound specifically directly to people within the library without bothering the other people that are reading quietly. One of the things is we can bring in a couple of Latin dancers, send them some hot salsa music. They can dance all they like in the middle of the library to all the music that they want without bothering the other people nearby who want to sit, read, or work quietly.
The system works like this. First, your voice is transformed into high-frequency ultrasound, sound so high no one can hear it. Ultrasound is highly directional, so, like a torch, it can be pointed at someone standing a long way away. Although they cannot hear the ultrasound, it causes secondary vibrations in the air around them, and it's that sound the person hears.
So if you imagine you're in a room and I shine a flashlight at you, it's very bright for you, but it's very dark for everybody else. Much the same way, the audio spotlight creates a very narrow beam of sound that you can shine at a listener. They hear it very clearly, and it doesn't create noise that might bother other people in the same space.
It's already being used in museums, and soon Dr. Pompey hopes he'll have his system in TV sets, so that only one person in the room can hear it. The others can get on with something much more boring. But whatever its practical use is, it remains a great toy.
Hey, excuse me, miss. That's a really nice shirt you've got on.
In a moment, trust that comes in a bottle, birds on the treadmill, and the ultimate race on the test department track. But before that, what to wear if you're over-endowed in the posterior department. Meet Gloria. She has a problem. She's concerned that her gluteus maximus muscles are overdeveloped, which is a brain box way of saying she's worried she has a big bum. So worried, in fact, that she spent the last 2 hours wondering which of these 3 pairs of trousers she should put on. Luckily, Horace, her boyfriend, has been doing some research. He's convinced that the vertical stripes on those trousers will make her bum look bigger. And indeed they do. So what about the nice white ones? No, these two seem to accentuate the bulge somewhat. Horace has an idea. He's noticed that the bum looks big because of all the shadows falling on the white cloth. So perhaps wearing a dark pair of trousers will make the shadows hard to see and will make Gloria's bum look smaller.
Nice.
And yes, it does.
Horace, you're so clever.
Until you see the profile. Which is faster, man or machine? Can our pie-eating demonstrator beat the wheezing test department science wagon over 30 metres? Let's see. Whilst the last-minute adjustments are being made, here's the hypothesis. That's science speak for stab in the dark. We believe that whilst our van can hit 90 kilometres per hour down long hills, our demonstrator should still be able to win over a short distance. In a sprint race, it's all about acceleration. Even though he's fueled by half a dozen pies a day, our demonstrator should still be able to get up to his top speed in a couple of seconds, whilst the van can only reach its top speed on a very good day. So, let's put our theory to the test. It looks like we're ready for the ultimate man versus machine race. So there you have it. Pie Man is indeed faster than a machine. But only over 30 yards. The smug git. In our next visit to the test department, we'll be out on the streets testing jam jars. But first, let's check out that whiff coming from California. Experimental has come to Claremont Graduate University, possibly the most trusting campus in the USA.
Go ahead, take it. I trust you.
And why are perfectly rational students prepared to laden strangers' hands with greenbacks? Well, perhaps it's to do with this man, Dr. Paul Zak, and his little sprayer of clear liquid.
This vial contains oxytocin. You might call it trust in a bottle. Trust me.
If Dr. Zak is right, a good dose of oxytocin is likely to make you far more trusting, even of total strangers. It's a neurochemical, one of hundreds made in your brain which influence your mood. Oxytocin is released when we feel good, like when we're with someone we like a lot and end up, well, we can't show you that bit, but you get the drift.
It's because oxytocin is active in areas in the brain that are associated with social behaviors, and it decreases the anxiety we have of interacting with strangers.
And to prove that we can trust him, Dr. Zak put on a little demonstration of the powers of his bottled trust.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
He took a number of strangers and squirted either oxytocin or plain old salt water up their nose.
5, breathe.
Once the dribblings had been dealt with, it was time to start the experiment.
The substance you just inhaled is either oxytocin, which is a natural hormone that your body makes, or salty water. You do not know which one of these substances you've been given today. What we want to do is to look at how oxytocin affects the way you make decisions, in particular decisions involving other people and money. What we're going to have you do in just a minute is to log on to the computer and you'll be matched with someone else in the room and you will make decisions by computer with real money that we're going to pay to you today. So here we go. They're going to start making decisions. And we should see several subjects pop up who are on oxytocin, who are showing lots of trust, and other subjects who are going to be less trusting.
The game works like this. Everyone has been given $10. The computer then gives them the option of giving some of that money away to one of the other participants. And this is where the trust comes in. No one knows who they're giving their money to. All they know is that if they give, say, $8 to person X, that $8 is going to be tripled, and person X will get 24. All the giver can do is trust that the person they've given to will split the profits with them, so they will both end up richer. But there's nothing to stop the receiver taking all the money and returning nothing.
Experimental economists think that the transfer from the first mover to the second mover is a sign of trust. The only reason you would actually take money out of the account, your account that you've earned, and give it to another person is because you're saying to them, hey, the pie just got 3 times bigger, and I trust, I believe, I hope that you're going to understand what you're supposed to do with this. You're supposed to share it with me, but you don't have to, and you can't communicate with them. So what we find is about 80% of first movers, in fact, send some amount of money to the second person, and of people who receive a monetary transfer denoting trust, an intentional transfer, about 90% return money back to the first person.
Give people a squirt of oxytocin, and they're far more likely to trust total strangers with their money.
So what we find is that when we give subjects oxytocin intranasally, that it increases their average level of trust by 17%. But more importantly, it more than doubles the number of people who give all their money to another person in the trust game. They keep 0 for themselves and give all their money to a stranger.
The oxytocin receptors are buried deep within the oldest parts of the brain, the parts that developed long before any of the true thinking parts, which is why our sense of trust is often subconscious. But it doesn't seem to work on everyone. Monitoring the volunteers, Dr. Zach can see that there is someone who, even though they've had a good whack of oxytocin, is far from trusting.
For now, we just know that most people, when you help them out, their brain releases oxytocin and they reciprocate. Other people, like the person here, is a bastard. Right? So we have one person here who's kind of playing like a bastard. They spend a lot of money. Generally, their brains release a high amount of oxytocin, but they're keeping all the money. And this is a person that you don't want to have coffee with or beer. You do something nice for them, and they kind of take advantage of you. So that's not very nice. So we see about 2% of people kind of hardwired for this, and we're now investigating why they might be doing that. What's happening in their brains that lead them not to want to reciprocate, where 98% of people, in fact, behave according to what your brain's telling you. Hey, someone helped you? Help them out. Be nice. Reciprocate.
But what about the rest of us? Oxytocin might have been shown to have no effect on 1 or 2 people, but what about the other 98%? A gang's going to be running around in the streets, squirting us with oxytocin and asking for our money?
I think it's difficult for that to happen for 2 reasons. One is that we have to put a large amount up your nose to actually get an effect, about 2 teaspoons full, so you'd know you're getting it. And second, the effect is very mild. So we do find people who are given oxytocin who are not trusting at all. They keep all the money. So there are interactive effects in the areas of the brain in which oxytocin is active that modulate its effects. So it's more effective in some people, less effective in others. If I really want to manipulate you, I could use other psychoactive medications that are much more dramatic.
What is good about these experiments is Dr. Zach has shown not just which chemical affects trusting behaviour in others, but also that most of the time, most of us are trusting anyway. Untrusting types are few and far between. Still to come on Experimental, the mystery of how we run fast. But first, to the test department for the answer to a sticky problem. Meet the world's greatest test of human strength. The humble jam jar. Don't believe us? Well, let's see if this chap can open one. Nope. No, can't do it. Well, what about this big boy? Not quite man enough? Madam? Oh, come on.
You glued it on!
Why is it that a simple jar of jam can cause so many problems when it comes to getting it open? The answer is that when jam is put into the jar, it's hot. As the jam cools, both it and the little bit of air at the top contract, causing a partial vacuum, which is what holds the lid on so tight. To show just how strong a vacuum really is, let's suck the air out of these two hemispheres with our trusty vacuum cleaner. Go on, lads, you can do it! Oh, no, you can't. And just to prove that it was no more than a vacuum that was holding the spheres together, let's let the air back in. Oops. So if you come face to face with a killer jam jar, use the test department's top tip. Make a tiny hole in the top to release the vacuum, and bingo, problem solved. Walking. Man has been doing it for at least 4 million years. And let's face it, it looks pretty simple, doesn't it? Put one leg in front of the other, again and again and again, and you're walking. Do it a bit faster and put a little jump in the middle, and it's called running. But amazingly, till recently, the science of what's going on inside the muscles of the leg was pretty hazy. Something that annoyed Richard Marsh, biology professor at Boston's Northeastern University.
We don't completely understand the energetics and mechanics of walking and running in any animal or in humans.
Okay, well here's what we do know. Key to a walk, or a run, is how the muscles at the front and the back of the leg move it backwards and forwards. Most people assumed that the muscle at the front didn't really do much work. After all it had to do was swing the leg forward, which the argument meant it hardly used any energy at all. That's what everyone believed, but no one was really sure. To find out, Professor Marsh turned to these little creatures. Guinea fowl. But why a bird?
They're the only other group of animals other than humans to run on two legs.
Now, the sharper amongst you might be saying, "Oi! Birds' legs are different from ours, their knees bend a different way." If that is the case, then stop shouting fast, because your eyes deceive you.
Yes, it seems that way when you look at a bird running, because what you're actually seeing is the ankle and not the knee. The knee is hidden by the feathers, and in reality, the leg design is quite similar to that of a human.
Now that we've cleared up that little anatomical oddity, let's continue with the science. What can you learn from a bird that's so tough to learn from a human?
But the difficulty has been figuring out how much energy the muscles use. And what I realize is that the amount of blood flow to a muscle is directly proportional to the amount of energy that muscle is using.
To monitor the blood flow, Professor Marsh put the guinea fowl on a treadmill and twiddled the knob until the bird was going nowhere as fast as he could go. Just in case the bird decided it didn't want to run, Professor Marsh installed a safety backup.
I'm here to make sure the bird doesn't fall off the treadmill, so that if he comes off the back, I can catch him.
Endurance trained the birds so that they can run at this speed for a half an hour, which is pretty impressive. I don't think I could do that.
Having run the equivalent of a birdie marathon or two, Professor Marsh can get the vital blood samples he needs to analyse just how much work the two important muscles are doing. The answer, that extends to humans, means a bit of a rerun takes place.
Our experiments clearly showed that 25% of the energy is actually used to move the limb while it's off the ground, which is a bit of a surprise.
In other words, the muscle on the front of the leg that pulls it forward is far more important to good performance than had always been thought. What that means for the likes of you is not much. But when it comes to training a great athlete, like the test department's Horace here, then putting a bit more effort into training the muscles at the front of the leg could mean he'll be able to beat Ferraris in future.